What's going on, guys? Your boy Maze. We're back with another video, and in today's video has been going over the Holy Relic priority list for Nidhoggr, guys. Now that we have LR Liz and Nidhoggr is just a lot more easier to clear, we're actually going to be going over the priority list for Holy Relics and recommending from best to worst which ones you want to be making in that order. So that's going to be very important for a lot of you guys that are just starting Nidhoggr, or even people that are kind of going through it right now and want to decide Holy Relics. I have all 12 Holy Relics so far from Nidhoggr, so I have a fairly good grasp of like what each of them do. And so in this video, we're going to be going over my ranking for the best to worst for the Nidhoggr Relics in terms of priority for your account. Alright guys, before we actually hop into the video, make sure to subscribe to your boy Amazing. We are on the road to the 40,000 subscribers. Your boy Amazing's at the 38,000 subscribers, guys. If you guys haven't hit that subscribe button already though, man, definitely make sure to. And with that out of the way, let's hop in and let's go over the priority list. Now, starting with number one is going to be Freya Relic. Now, the reason why number one is Freya Relic is because the way she works is she is kind of like the quote-unquote Nidhoggr unit. She's not actually the Nidhoggr unit in the sense of like, oh, the moment you get her, she's gonna make it just like super easy, especially after the relic. The reason why it's kind of different is because normally Freya doesn't have a passive that's centered around Nidhoggr. She actually has a PvP oriented passive, but it also works in PvE as well. But the Holy Relic is what's centered around Nidhoggr that makes her so good. So in Demonic Peace Battle Nidhoggr, the hero's single targeted attack skills have a stance cancel effect, which is really good. Increases all stats of allies by 4% every time the hero inflicts damage using skills up to 5 times. The hero is given additional race of goddess, which is affected by goddess's unique abilities. And if all allies in the battlefield are goddesses, each goddess ally increases the hero's attack related stats by 10%, which is very strong in Nidhoggr. So yeah, the reason why Freya is number one is because she helps your runs immensely. If you have LR Liz already and you're going for clears right now on Nidhoggr, having Freya's Relic alongside an LR Liz makes your run absolutely just super easy. I think Freya's Relic, because of how strong it is, alongside like another buffer like either the Margaret or even like LR Liz, it just becomes such a thing of like where it's very easy going through Nidhoggr. And so because of that, that's my first recommendation for a Holy Relic, because once you get this, you can start farming the other Holy Relics a lot easier, you know, as you go through the weeks of just clearing Nidhoggr 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, all 3 floors, and you're going to be getting all the Holy Relic materials. So that's number one on the list right there, guys. Moving on to number two on the list is going to be Freyr Holy Relic. Now, the reason why Freyr Holy Relic is number two is because Freyr Relic allows you to run a Ragnarok unknown team as well that can beat Nidhoggr too. So there is that. That was my first thing that I thought of, like, okay, if you don't want Freya's, but you want to run like kind of like an unknown variant, which I think you need Freya's as well for Freyrs to work too. But that's why I recommend Freya's first. But Freyrs is really good because it increases, so this is what the passive does. Increases applicable allies' basic stats by 5% and damage dealt with single target attack skills by 5% for each applicable ally on the battlefield, and it's going to be Ragnarok or unknown races, which is really good, right? Covers both your PvP, because Freyr actually becomes a PvP unit with this relic because it's giving you basic stats for your team. And literally, like, before Overlord collab even released, people were running, you know, Freyr on that unknown team. It was Freyr, Tyr, Hel, and then Nanashi backline. Like, he is a staple in PvP, being a PvE unit, which is crazy, like, because Freyr came out and he was like PvE oriented, right? But after this relic, he became a PvP character because of how strong the effect actually is. Now, the reason why it's not better than Freya's, in my opinion, is because Freya's gives you a better chance of clearing through Nidhoggr than Freyr's necessarily, because Freyr's needs the unknown team, whereas you know, Freya requires the goddess team, and the goddess team is a lot easier to you know, build up versus the unknown team. So that's why I'm gonna have Freya at number one, Freya at number two. Now for number three, guys, in terms of the Holy Relic at number three, this one was a toss-up between Deian and Lost Vein, and I had this like kind of like, you know, thought in my head, because on my free-to-play account I got Deian's first, and then I got Lost Vein. Now, that was a mistake because I feel like when I was running Deian with Lost Vein, I would rather have had Lost Vein's damage dealt versus Deian's stance damage dealt, because there are times where I want to just attack with Lost Vein and not necessarily attack with Deian. And so when you're using like Sin's team on Heroes Arena, I think having Lost Vein with Holy Relic is very important, because it increases the hero's damage dealt by 10% for every orb in the hero's ultimate move gauge, which is going to be very strong when when you're doing like single target and an AoE follow-up, because the AoE is going to be dealing what, like an extra, like, you know, because you're getting 3 gauge from the single target, you get an extra 30% damage on your AoE, which is really, really strong for Lost Vein, right? Versus Deian, which is giving 30% for 2 turns, but you have to use a stance for her turn 1, right? And there's some scenarios where I didn't really want to use a stance turn 1, and so just having the damage dealt on the Relic felt a little bit more consistent for me when running like Heroes Arena runs with like Sin's team. Right, so that's my first takeaway. So I would say Lost Vein's Relic is going to, you know, edge it out a little bit, but it's honestly a personal preference thing. If you would always like to stance up with Deian turn 1, and then follow up with Lost Vein cards, then you could actually argue that Deian's Holy Relic might be better. And Deian overall is a really good character with the Relic, but Lost Vein is complete after he has his Relic. If you have Lost Vein Relic with his kit that he has, like, he is a very, very strong character. So that's gonna be my number 3 and number 4. So Deian's Relic, it increases allies damage dealt for 2 turns when the hero assumes a stance. So it's really just you pick between which one you want for your team, right? Obviously Lost Vein's only for himself, but Deian's giving it to the team. So it's also based on, like, would you rather have a supportive type character, or would you rather rely on Lost Vein? So it really comes down to who you would go for with that, guys. But that's gonna be my number 3 and number 4 respectively. Number 5 is going to be Blue Roxy. Now, the reason why Blue Roxy gets to number 5, and I was honestly thinking of putting her higher too, with how good humans are going to be in the future. Yeah, I mean, Roxy's Relic is insane. Increases the hero's basic stats by 3% and critical damage by 30% for each human ally in battle. That is so broken, because the way that works means that you can get up to, what, 90% crit damage and 9% basic stats on Roxy, because, you know, it's working as in, you know, for each human ally in the battlefield, you're gonna get 3% basic stats, 30% crit damage. And when you actually run Roxy in PvP, if you guys have like a fully invested human team, or if you've seen one in PvP, you know that Roxy can one turn a tier. It can one turn, you know, pretty much anything in the game, right? Like anything that you would think, if you have a single target with her, the single target is doing damage cap, even on like a Demon King, right? Like, she just hits so hard. And like, this Holy Relic changes Roxy from being a good PvP character to actually a meta option on the human team. Like, she actually becomes a staple on it. So right now I'm thinking that this Relic is probably number 5 on the list, considering how strong humans are going to be in the future, and with how strong humans are right now in PvP. So that's my take right there. Roxy Relic is very, very good. Basic stat increase for herself and critical damage. So just everything she would need, right? So there is that. That's going to be number 5. Moving on to number 4, I actually do have Melasila Holy Relic, no bias. Now, the reason why Melasila Holy Relic is actually a very, very strong relic is because, for you guys that don't know what the relic does, it increases attack-related stats of allies with the revival effect by 30%, then increases allies' basic stats by 3% for each ignite applied to the enemies up to 5 times. So you get a basic stat increase for the team whenever there's ignites on the enemies. Also, you're getting a revival effect from the red one that increases attack-related stats. Now, the reason why this is so good is because when running Heroes Arena and you run the Matrona Melasila demon team, right? Melasila giving the 30% to Matrona doesn't feel like it's really gonna help you that much, but there have been times where I actually had the revive on Matrona, and because I'm running attack crit defense on my Matrona, she's able to do more damage than my Melasila because of that 30% attack related stats. It's just enough to make me do more damage, so that you know, Matrona can maybe edge out a kill on like one of the enemies if I need it, or if I need the buff removal, right? So the thing is with the relic is it's really gimmicky, but when you actually do use this in like Heroes Arena, it's gonna be big. It gives stats to Melasila herself, and it's obviously gonna be making the Matrona do a ton of damage on Heroes Arena. So that's why I actually do think this relic is very, very good. And if you are running Heroes Arena Melasila Matrona team, you want to have this relic for sure, man. It's gonna be a big help when actually clearing for those teams. So that is gonna be my number 6 right there at number 6, Melasila. Number 7 on the list, guys, is going to be Assault Mode Meliodas. Now, the reason why Assault Mode Meliodas' relic is very good as well is because honestly, if we were looking at just relics alone, Assault Modes might be the best relic, right? Like, Assault Mode's relic might be the best if we were looking just at, like, you know, each relic for what it does alone and not the actual character, right? But for you guys that don't know what the relic does, increases the hero's basic stats by 30% for 2 turns at the start of the battle. If the hero does not take damage during the enemy turn, applies the same effect on the start of the turn for start of the ally's turn. Increases demon allies basic stats by 5% for every buff applied to the hero, which is obviously really good because you get demon ally basic stats off the rip with the 30% basic stats you get at start of turn. So you're automatically giving the allies the basic stats, which is really strong. So yeah, the reason why this relic is actually like usable is because when you're running like Heroes Arena, and I know a lot of these holy relics come into play in Heroes Arena, but they're also obviously taken into account in PvP too, right? If you know they're good in Heroes Arena, you could probably use them in PvP as well. But the main reason why it works so well in Heroes Arena is because, you know, your team can be very tanky off the rip, and Assault Mode Melly is able to do a ton of damage because the enemies are always going to be attacking the team. So you have your basic stats up, and then Assault Melly builds up all stats in his passive, so you're able to kind of just like one bang people off the rip. And because he gets a ton of all stats, he's going to start life stealing and going a little crazy. So very good holy relic right here. And if you were to pick this one earlier on the list, I wouldn't even fall to. I think Assault Mode Melly relic is actually very good. If Assault Mode was to get LR, he would be absolutely insane considering how good this holy relic is, right? So yeah, that is number 7 right there on the list, Assault Mode Meliodas. Now moving on to number 8, we have Rosa. Now the reason why Rosa's relic is at number 8 is because I feel like he still has some meta relevance in PvP, and I haven't seen this being used in Heroes Arena or anything. Like, it probably has a use, but honestly Rosa has kind of fallen off on the demon team now. But if you are still to use Rosa on the demon team, this holy relic is going to be a must because it gives him stats, and then it also allows you to have a gauge reduction effect when you kill the enemy using Rosa's skill. So deplete 1 orb from the ultimate move gauges of all enemies at the end of the turn when an enemy dies from the hero's skill use. So if you're attacking and you get a kill, that's gonna, you know, take the gauge, and you know, it's gonna be pretty beneficial for the team. So that's why Rosa is at number 8. I think he's okay, but because he's kind of fallen off in PvP, I don't really want to recommend him like higher on the list. Alright guys, at number 9, we have Light Elizabeth Holy Relic. So Light Elizabeth Relic isn't really a strong one in the sense of like what it's really doing. For you guys that don't know what it does, increases the hero's damage dealt by 10% and decreases damage taken by 5% for each applicable ally on the battlefield, and then remove infect from allies before recovery from the hero's unique ability activates. And the applicable allies is obviously goddesses and 7th license allies. Now the thing is with Light Elizabeth, the problem that she has is that infect right now, it's good. But the main infect that's being used in the meta is actually the Demon King infect right at this very moment, right? We still have like Shaltir that just released on JP, and then we also have like Echidna and like obviously like unknown variant characters that have infect as well. But the only like main infect that was really being run for a while in PvP right now was probably Demon Kings, and it doesn't get affected by this relic. So that's the problem with this relic, is it doesn't just cleanse debuffs. If you just remove debuffs from allies before recovery from the hero's unique ability activated, she would be so broken. Like Light Elizabeth actually might be a good option on Goddess team. But because she doesn't have remove debuffs and it's just remove infect, she's not too crazy. But yeah, you would only really use this in PvP or Heroes Arena if you were running her. But these are not needed when running Light Elizabeth in Heroes Arena, and in PvP you're not going to really be running her. That's why this recommendation for Light Liz is kind of low on the list. But it's still definitely an option for increasing her CC, and she's one of the higher CC characters in the game after this relic. So there is that as well. Yeah, moving on to number 10, guys, we have Red Zeldris. Now, the reason why Red Zeldris is higher than Ominous Nebula, and I'm going to explain this. The reason why is because I feel like Red Zeldris has more uses considering the teams that you're going to be using. So, Red Zeldris right now is a PvE-oriented buffer because he's able to give your team basic stats whenever he has gauge reduction. And, you know, I've seen Zeldris being used in Guild Boss, I've seen him being used in Final Boss for high score, whereas the thing is with Ominous Nebula, and we're going to talk about both of them together because I feel like, you know, talking about them together is a good way to kind of go about it. But Ominous Nebula, the problem with him is that he's fallen off because there's the Demon King, right? Demon King is just an outright better character than Ominous Nebula Zeldris, so you're just going to run Demon King over him, and you can't run both of them, right? So because of that, I'm gonna recommend to people that if they had to pick between a character, you're gonna be running Demon King over Ominous Nebula, meaning that Ominous Nebula's relic is not as much of a priority as, you know, it might be if he was the main one on the team. If he was the main Zeldris on the team, then this relic would be way up the list right now, because it's actually a good relic. For every debuff on the enemy, increase demon allies basic stats by 3% and heroes damage dealt up to 5 times. Very, very good relic, but the problem is this character is just not better than the Demon King. Demon King is just better. And then for regular Zeldris, the reason why I say it's good again is because final boss and guild boss, whenever there is a final boss and guild boss that lets you use a demon character like this, you're able to build big basic stats, because the way this works is that whenever you lose gauge or decrease the enemy's ultimate move gauge from Zelder specifically, it's going to increase allies basic stats by 6% up to 5 times, which is going to be big because you can get up to 30% basic stats alone from just Zeldris, right? Which is very, very good. So that's the 10 and 11 right there, guys. So red Zeldris number 10, and then number 11 is going to be Ominous Nebula, and then the last character on the list, guys, at number 12 is going to be Fraudrin, and Fraudrin is literally just does not have a special effect, but increases the basic stats of the Holy Relic. So you just get big basic stats for Fraudrin. But the problem is with Fraudrin is that he's still not LTCing with these basic stats, and then if you were to give it to the blue one, he doesn't want it because he wants to die. So that his is definitely the worst Holy Relic of the bunch. So yeah, guys, let me know in the comment section below how you guys would rank the list. This is just my ranking, obviously, from my experience when using the characters and their relics, but let me know in the comment section below how you guys would rank the Holy Relics. But let's do a recap and let's go over the ranking from the beginning to the end. So the number 1 is going to be Freya Holy Relic. Number 2 is going to be Freyr Holy Relic. Number 3 is going to be Lost Vein. Number 4 is going to be Deian. Number 5 is going to be Roxy. Number 6 is going to be Red Melascula. Number 7 is going to be Assault Mode Melly. Number 8 is going to be Rosa. Number 9 is going to be Light Elizabeth. Number 10 is going to be Red Zeldris. Number 11 is going to be Ominous Nebula. And then number 12 at the last slot is going to be Fraudrin. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video right there. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as per usual, guys. And without the way, man, that's going to be it for the video. And I'm going to see you guys in the next one, man. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later, man.